In the summer of 1942, as World War II raged across Europe, Adolf Hitler set his sights on a new and audacious goal: the city of Stalingrad. Situated on the Volga River, Stalingrad held immense strategic and symbolic importance. It was the gateway to the Soviet Union's southern territories, rich in oil and resources that Germany desperately needed. But more than that, Stalingrad bore the name of Hitler's nemesis, Joseph Stalin. Capturing it would deal a powerful blow to Soviet morale and symbolize Nazi dominance. What began as another step in Germany's advance across the Eastern Front soon transformed into one of the most brutal and devastating battles in history. Hitler believed a swift victory at Stalingrad could secure vital resources, weaken the Soviet Union, and potentially end the Eastern Front conflict. German soldiers, accustomed to rapid victories through Blitzkrieg tactics, were confident in a quick conquest. However, the battle would defy all expectations, turning into a grueling, months-long siege that neither side could afford to lose. The stakes were high. Stalin ordered that the city bearing his name must be held at all costs. Losing Stalingrad would be more than a military setback. It would deeply damage Soviet morale. As the battle unfolded, Stalingrad became a symbol of Soviet resilience and the brutal nature of urban warfare. How did this battle, which began as a confident German offensive, turn into a disastrous defeat for the Nazis? And what tactics did the Soviets use to turn the tide? The Battle of Stalingrad became a pivotal moment in World War II, shifting momentum on the Eastern Front and altering the course of the entire war. In the summer of 1942, Hitler launched his southern campaign to capture Stalingrad and secure the Caucasus oil fields. The German Sixth Army, led by General Friedrich Paulus, spearheaded the assault, expecting a swift victory. With experienced soldiers and seasoned commanders, the Germans believed they could crush Soviet defenses quickly, adding another triumph to their record on the Eastern Front. As German forces advanced, Soviet defenders faced a grim reality. Outgunned and underprepared, they were thrust into a desperate fight to hold the city. Stalin famously issued Order Number 227, not a step back, forbidding any retreat. Soldiers were commanded to hold their positions at all costs, with desertion punishable by death. This order intensified the resolve of Soviet troops who understood that failure at Stalingrad would mean disaster for the Soviet Union. Despite relentless Luftwaffe bombings that reduced much of the city to rubble, the Soviet defenders transformed Stalingrad into a fortress. Every street and building became a battleground. Civilians were enlisted to dig trenches and fortify positions. The German advance, which had previously encountered little resistance on open fields, slowed in the maze of ruins where Soviet soldiers fought for every inch. Once the battle entered Stalingrad, the conflict turned into a brutal, grinding struggle. The destroyed cityscape created a nightmare battlefield where Soviet and German soldiers fought over every street and building. This was not the Blitzkrieg warfare the Germans had mastered. It was urban combat in its harshest form. Soviet soldiers used the rubble to their advantage, setting ambushes and transforming every room and hallway into a deadly trap. Snipers played a key role, hiding in the ruins and picking off German soldiers one by one. Figures like Vasily Zaitsev became legends for their skill and effectiveness. The Germans, unaccustomed to this kind of warfare, found themselves vulnerable to sudden ambushes and close-quarters combat at every turn. The fighting was relentless, often hand-to-hand, with neither side willing to yield. Soviet forces employed hugging tactics, staying close to German lines to neutralize their artillery and air support, forcing them into brutal close combat. Both sides endured horrific conditions as supplies dwindled, and soldiers faced starvation, freezing temperatures, and the constant threat of death. For the Germans, initially confident of a quick victory, Stalingrad became a trap, grinding down men and resources in a relentless battle of attrition. By late 1942, the Germans were still struggling to capture Stalingrad. Hitler, determined to take the city, ordered his troops to hold their ground despite severe losses and dwindling supplies. Meanwhile, Soviet High Command, led by Generals Georgy Zhukov and Alexander Vasilevsky, was planning a massive counteroffensive to turn the tide. On November 19, 1942, the Soviets launched Operation Uranus. This counterattack targeted the weaker Romanian and Italian units guarding the German flanks. Overwhelmed by the Soviet assault, these Axis forces quickly crumbled, allowing Soviet troops to encircle the German Sixth Army, trapping over 300,000 soldiers inside Stalingrad. The encirclement took the German High Command by surprise. General Paulus requested permission to break out, but Hitler refused, insisting his troops hold their position. Hitler assured Paulus that the Luftwaffe would supply the trapped soldiers by air. But harsh winter weather and Soviet anti-aircraft fire made resupply flights nearly impossible. The German soldiers quickly ran out of food, ammunition, and medical supplies as the brutal winter compounded their suffering. By January 1943, the situation for the German Sixth Army was hopeless. Trapped in the ruins of Stalingrad, facing starvation, disease, and the relentless Russian winter, the soldiers of the Sixth Army were in desperate straits. Soviet forces pressed their advantage, closing in around the encircled Germans. Morale was shattered, and supplies were nearly non-existent. On January 31, 1943, General Friedrich Paulus defied Hitler's orders to fight to the last man and surrendered to Soviet forces. Over 90,000 German soldiers were taken prisoner, including Paulus himself, the first German field marshal to be captured alive. For Nazi Germany, the surrender at Stalingrad was a devastating blow, both militarily and psychologically. The Battle of Stalingrad had claimed nearly 2 million casualties, including soldiers and civilians. The city itself was left in ruins, a stark reminder of the ferocity of the conflict. Stalingrad marked a crucial turning point. It was the first major defeat for Hitler's armies, shattering the myth of Nazi invincibility and shifting the momentum of the war in favor of the Allies. The psychological impact of Stalingrad was profound. For the Soviet Union, it was a moment of triumph and resilience, proving that even Hitler's seemingly unstoppable war machine could be defeated. For Germany, the loss at Stalingrad was a harsh lesson in the limits of Hitler's ambitions. Stalingrad would forever remain a symbol of sacrifice, defiance, and the beginning of Nazi Germany's downfall. The Battle of Stalingrad stands as one of the most pivotal and harrowing chapters of World War II. What began as a German push to seize Soviet resources turned into a brutal, drawn-out siege that neither side could afford to lose. Hitler's obsession with capturing Stalingrad trapped the German Sixth Army in a battle that would end in disaster. For the Soviet Union, Stalingrad was a fight for survival and a testament to the resilience of its people. Against all odds, Soviet soldiers and civilians fought with unwavering determination to defend their homeland, enduring unimaginable hardships. Stalingrad became a symbol of Soviet strength, and the victory there signaled a new chapter in the war, as the Red Army began its push westward, ultimately leading to the collapse of Nazi Germany. And the victory there signaled a new chapter in the war. The consequences of Stalingrad were far-reaching. It shattered the myth of Nazi invincibility and served as a rallying point for the Allies, showing that Hitler's forces could be defeated. The staggering losses at Stalingrad drained German resources, morale, and manpower, setting the stage for Soviet advances that would ultimately bring the Red Army to Berlin by 1945. Stalingrad was not only a turning point on the Eastern Front, but a turning point for the entire war. As we reflect on the Battle of Stalingrad, we remember the courage, sacrifice, and resilience of those who fought on both sides. It is a testament to the horrors of war and the indomitable spirit of those who defend their homeland. If you found this exploration of Stalingrad insightful, be sure to like this video and subscribe for more stories of World War II's most defining moments and the lessons they hold for us today.